Hello everybody, Network Wizkid here, and in this video we're going to take a look at how to configure a CentOS server with Duo two-factor authentication for SSH access. And we're going to do this using the documentation here that we have on the Duo documentation page. So this is going to be, there's two ways to do this. The way we're going to do this today is by using the PAM module to actually configure this. And what we'll do is we'll run through the steps in this guide as a regular customer would do most of the time anyway, and we'll just see how easy it is to actually configure this. And there's one particular step actually in this documentation specifically that I would like to just point out, just so that you are aware of, especially if you're configuring CentOS OS. So I have the CentOS server here. It's a demo machine just being spun up for this particular demonstration, and we'll use our demo Duo account to go through this as well. So in the documentation you get an overview in terms of kind of what this configuration entails of. You've got a walkthrough video, and then you've got some overview of steps, and then you have the option here to either build and install from source. And when we say source, we're kind of referring to the packages themselves, so OpenSSL, libpam, and all the rest of the packages that are required for the Unix platform. Or you can choose to install from Linux packages, which is more which is designed to be easier as well. And then you've got the different tested versions here, and Duo tell you kind of which ones have been tested as well. And so you've got different ones here. So you've got Red Hat Linux, Debian, Ubuntu, and CentOS. So we're going to focus on CentOS, and like I say, I've got a CentOS 8 machine now. So we'll run through this configuration, as I say, as a customer normally would do as well, and we'll just see how easy this is. So make sure when you are doing this you have super user permissions. So we'll start off here by, we'll create this repository here. So what we'll do is we'll do nano, and then what we can do is we can actually create this repository here. And then what we'll do inside that repository is we'll paste this content here. So again, we'll copy this and we'll save that. Now what we'll do is we'll execute the following shell commands for CentOS 7 and later. So first off, we'll start with this one, which is basically going to import the public key, and then we'll do install Duo Unix. And then that should be okay now. So at the end of that you should see one package installed. Press yes. To install that package. Okay, so once that package is installed, we can now move on to the Duo configuration here. So we need to edit the pam_duo config file, and this is just being installed. So it tells you where to navigate to this. So let's just go to let's change directory just to verify. etc duo should be in. Yep, so you can see the pam_duo.conf there. So we need to edit that. Okay, and you can see we got some a template to work off here. So we need to get some details now from our Duo admin panel and copy this into here. So we need the integration key, the secret key, and the API host, and then we can add a few more options as well as we see fit. So I'll just access now my Duo admin panel, and then we need to add an application. So the application you would add, I've already got it added here, and we'll use that for the demo. But if you was to add a new application, then you just type Unix, and then we need to find this one here, Unix application two-factor authentication, and then you would protect that. As I say, I've already got one here, so we can make use of this for this demo. So we'll just copy these details. So the integration key, secret key. Please keep this secret to yourself, don't share this secret key. This is a demo account, so it's not really a big deal. And then API host. And now there's a few other things that we can do here. We can add a few more fields, and we can make use of the fields that are already here. So in order to prevent yourself getting locked out in case you make some configuration errors or anything like that, it's always recommended to, at least while you're configuring this and ensuring that it works first, configure fail mode safe, so that if there's any errors, you'll still be able to access this server without 2FA. So that's on by default. So push info, we can enable that. So that's just going to send command for Duo push authentication, and we can also enable auto push, which is just going to send an auto push when we want to authenticate, as opposed to presenting options asking us what we want to do. So that's pretty much the configuration that's required there. So we'll save that. And let's go back now to our documentation. So we've done the Duo configuration, and as I say, there's a few more fields if you wanted to add them depending on your environment, so it's always worth looking at the documentation. Now, system configuration. Now this is an important part here as well. So please again read this. If you are using public key authentication, there's a few other steps that you need to take as opposed to just using the password authentication. In our demonstration, we're using password authentication, so we don't need to worry ourselves about that. Now, as I said at the start of the video, there's a part in this documentation that I personally particularly don't think is clear enough, and it's this part here for PAM configuration. So under PAM configurations, it says you need to modify your system's PAM configuration to include a line like the following. So okay, that's all well and good, and then it goes on to saying if depending on your architecture of your Unix system, you may need to essentially specify the full field as to where the pam_duo.so module is. Okay, that's all good. And then it's talking about the location, blah blah blah. And then it goes on now to, if you want to install PAM Duo with your installation of OpenSSH, SSHD, set both use PAM and challenge response authentication to yes in your SSHD config. This is usually in /etc or etc SSH. You should also set use DNS flag to no. Okay, cool. So if we was to kind of just continue to follow this, and again what we'll do is we will follow it and we'll see kind of why I'm pointing that out a little later on. So now we go to let's go to etc. In fact, what am I in? Okay, so let's go to etc SSH, and then when we see what's here, we've got the SSHD config file. So the SSH D config file is here. So let's go ahead and modify that. Okay, so now we've got the SSH config file here, and now we need to find those three fields here. So use PAM challenge authentication, yes, and use DNS. So if you are searching for this, then you need to make sure that it's case sensitive, so always write it out as it is. So we can see use PAM is there, that's already enabled. Now let's have a look for challenge response authentication. Okay, so we can see that it's set to no there, so let's change that. So we'll blank that out and we'll challenge authentication yes, and then use DNS should be yes by default, so we'll change that. So let's do use DNS. Okay, so let's change that to sorry, it's not yes by default, it's blanked out by default. So yeah, let's keep that as no, so remove the hashtag, and then we should be good. So let's save that. Alright, cool. So it points out that we need to restart the SSH service after making edits to that file, to the config file that we've just done. We will do that after. Let's go now on to the configuration now for the system-wide authentication. So it's just reminding us here as well that we need to specify the full field, which is depending on the architecture. In our case, we're using a 64 bit, so as will be lib64 security, and you'll see kind of how I do that in a moment. So you've got some PAM system-wide configuration examples here, and you've got the path here where we need to make those additions. Again, if you're using public key authentication, then there's a separate set of configurations, and then also if you're using SE Linux, then there's a few more configurations here. We're just going to focus on the system-wide authentication, which is these little bits here. So let's go to let's change directory. Let's go to etc. In fact, nano. System off. Oops, that's not right. And system off. That's because I did the underscore. Okay, cool. So on the system off file, there's also a warning here as well, in fact, just before I do this, saying that running autoconfig after editing your PAM configs will overwrite your changes. So essentially don't run autoconfig once you've changed this file. Right, cool. So we got some before configs, so we can see that auth required PAM env.so is the first one. Auth sufficient PAM needs to be which one's that? Auth sufficient PAM Unix SO is not there. So try first pass. Let me just make that a little bit bigger. I don't think that's there. Sufficient. Nope. Sufficient. Yeah, cool. That one's not there, so we don't need to worry about that. Now we need to add. So let's just go ahead and add. Another line here. So Another one, auth required PAM succeed. So we got the bottom one, pam_deny.so, that's there. And then succeed is not there either. So that one's not there either. So this is where it can kind of throw you off a little bit. Nevertheless, let's input under here the two new fields that are required. So let's do that one first. The new fields that are required are in red. You can leave them as this, or you can kind of space them out so that it's uniform like the rest. So I'll do that because I just like to make everything look nice. There you go. And then we'll add the second one here. Alright, cool. So we've added those in now. We don't have the PAM succeed if .so UID 500. We don't have that in there. We've got failed delay. We don't have. We've got PAM sufficient. What's that one? PAM units SO. Alright, so that's similar to this one here, is similar to try first pass, but it's not. So what we'll do is we'll leave that for now, and we can always return back to it if it's going to make a difference anyway. But let's just save that as it is at the minute. And essentially we should be good now to test the actual setup. So what I always recommend is before we actually do this, and I can probably tell you now this is not going to work until we add another field, which is what I pointed out before. But before you actually do this, never close the actual session you have open, just in case you need to return back to it. Let's just duplicate this session and attempt to log in. So we'll put this one down here. And you can see I've logged straight in there, so there's no two-factor authentication. Let's just close that and just scroll back up in this documentation here. So the point that I wanted to say wasn't quite clear is, as I said earlier, is the PAM configuration section here. Now we need to add this. We need to add this into a specific area on CentOS, and it's not really clear in these instructions here where you actually add that. So we'll have a look at that in just a moment. And what I'll also do, actually, before I do that, let's just go back into system auth, and like I said earlier, let's specify the full path for pam_duo.so, and I'll just show you that it still doesn't work. etc pam.d. In fact, it's not. It's lib64 security. I think that's it. Lib64 security pam.duo. So okay, that's fine. So we'll save that. And again, we can systemctl restart sshd. So we'll even restart the service. So service is restarted now. Let's just again try to log in. And you can see there straight in, so no two-factor authentication. So the configuration I'm referring to here, where we need to put this auth required pam.duo, is actually in this same path. So under the pam.d folder, you've got the sshd folder here as well. So we need to actually modify this so that we're going to use pam for authentication. So what we need to do is on the second line, so I'm going to use password off. So on the second line, let's add this. So we'll do auth required, and then we'll do the full path again. So lib64 security, and then pam_duo.so. Alright, so let's save that now. Let's again restart the Sshd service, and now this time let's try to log in. And this time you see here the root user's not added in, not enrolled within Duo, so that's why it's denied. But as you can see here now, it's asking us to enroll as well before we can access. So if I actually just try with a user that is enrolled, so let me just come out of that. Let's duplicate another session here. I'm now prompted for 2FA, so I'm going to approve this on my side, and you can see there now, once approved, I am in. Now if we go back to our Duo admin panel and go to reports, we can see now that this user has just been granted access for this particular application. So that's great, so it works. So this is the point, as I say, just be wary when you're configuring this, because you do need to so open them again. You do need to ensure that you do add that pam_duo.so to the SSHD config file as well. And again, I don't think it's pretty clear in this documentation. I think many people can go wrong when configuring this as well, so just be aware of that when you're actually configuring that. And also one last thing is, in this config file, in the SSHD config file, make sure you put this after the password auth, because what you will do is you will prompt for two-factor authentication first, put in your password, then prompt for two-factor authentication again, and we can actually try that. So let me just I don't want to save that. Let's just go back into that there. So let's actually just show you guys what I mean there. So with that copied now. Alright, cool. And then what I'll do is I'll just comment that one out for now. Now if we just restart the SSHD service, and again let's duplicate this and log in again. You can see already I've not been asked to put in my password first. I've actually just got a two-factor authentication request, so I'm going to approve that now. Approved, and now you can see I can enter a password, enter the password, and now I'm in. So it's the wrong way around essentially. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that this is in the right location here. So underneath the substack for the password auth. So we'll just remove that. Save that, and then once we've restarted, we should be good now to, again, if I just quickly duplicate, and then if you can see the difference now. I've not been prompted first, I've been asked to put in a password first, and then we get the two-factor authentication, and that's the right way around. So I hope you found that video useful. It's more than what's showed on the demonstration website, so hopefully that helps, especially those that may get stuck at that particular point where I pointed out.